Projected ambitions.
Hi everyone, this is Ricky. I'm an engineer-producer and we're here today at Puzzle Factory Studios in North London to look at the Antelope Orion Studio Synergy Core. I have already spoken in my previous video about this interface and its predecessor, the Orion Studio HD, and my friend Jason O'Brien has gone through some of the main features and facilities of this interface. So I think today we're going to go through some of the software features and specifically how I've implemented this interface in my mixing workflow and sometimes in my recording workflow by using the built-in effects and the built-in routing facilities. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I brought in a session from a couple of years ago. It's from my band called Bob and the Apple. This song is called Strangers, and this is the mix session from, I believe, 2018. And I think it would be nice to implement some of the built-in plugins and run a few things through the interface and see if we can make it sound different, but just experiment with it. So let's jump right in. When you first plug your interface to the computer, this software comes up, and this is the Orion Synergy Core control panel. And at this specific page is the routing matrix. The first impression that everybody has with this screen is obviously quite confusing because you see a lot of different colors and different labels, but it's actually very, very comprehensive and super useful for any application. In this instance, we can see it's like a patch bay basically. At the top, we have the sources, whether analog or digital. Specifically, we have the preamps. We are plugged in Thunderbolt in this instance, so we have our DAW inputs and our DAW outputs down here. We have digital sources like ADAT, SPD, and then there's 4 built-in mixes, which for the purpose of this demonstration, we're gonna disregard. But they're basically like headphone mixes, which you can add effects and add reverbs, and they're great for, cue mixes for musicians when recording. Very important for us in this screen is the AFX. The AFX section basically is like all the plugins and the built-in effects handled in this specific unit by FPGAs and DSP. So the AFX outs are basically 32 buses, 32 mono buses or 16 stereo buses that we can use to route things in and out through the Thunderbolt connection or through the USB connection if that's used, from our DAW into the interface and back. So technically like we were using basically outboard. Like any of these pieces that you can see here. What I like to do at the beginning of every session, I usually have my templates, which you can store in the interface, like up here. There's 5 presets, or you can save specific sessions. What I like to do is to get the routing all set up so it's ready to go and I don't have to think about it when I'm mixing and I can be creative. So in this instance, what I want to do, 1 and 2 is our monitoring bus. So basically the way you use this is you select things at the top, which are your sources, and then you connect them, like you were literally connecting them with patch cables. I want to make sure that my output 1 and 2 is going to our monitor, so our speakers here, and then it's feeding the headphones by default at this point. And then I want to make sure that the AFX outs, in and outs, are patched in. So when I'm going to go to Pro Tools later and have hardware inserts, like if we were using analog, they'll be already going to where I want them to go. In this setup, I have both of my main outputs, my monitor outputs, fed by the mix bus, so fed by Pro Tools output 1 and 2. So I'm going to disregard the AFX 1 to 4 because they will obviously affect that. I'm going to consider them from 5 onwards, 5 all the way to 32. So if I drag the AFX outs and I basically patch them to Pro Tools, comp rec is basically computer rec. So this way I've just patched it in. And then the same way I want the playback side, so Pro Tools outputs 5 to 32 to go to my AFX. Here we go. 5 to 32. So this way now, all my hardware inserts right here, they're already labeled. They're going to the interface and back. Pretty self-explanatory. I also like to mute everything that I don't use so that it's not confusing and I don't have double monitoring in any potential way. So I usually do this. Maybe it's me. If we go here, this is the mixer page, but we're not going to look at that today because we're not using these mixes. This is the effect page, where basically we have all our either mono or stereo AFX buses. In this instance, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are not going to be used because I'm using the external outputs, the physical I/O already for this. So we're going to start from 5 and 6. Usually, I would probably have some preferences. I would have already maybe a drum chain, I would have a bass chain, or things that maybe are already set up and ready to go, and I can straight from Pro Tools select them and make them active or inactive, but in this instance I'm gonna build them from scratch. Why don't I play a little bit of the track? Okay, great. So as you can see, there's a lot of plugins and a lot of effects already happening. It's a full mix session. The song has already been released, but I think it will be interesting to like try a few things here and there. So I know this song has a pretty strong Lindrum programming over here. One of my favorite effects here on the Synergy Core AFX is the tape emulation. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set up 5 and 6 as a pair, and I'm gonna put the reel-to-reel plugin straight in. So that's my chain on 5 and 6. You can add more plugins if needed, but we're gonna start with this, but I'll show you how you can have basically like a whole chain, pretty much like if you were daisy chaining outboard. My Lindrum is already being processed. There's a few reverbs and slaps, and it all comes out of this bus called Lindrum. All I need to do is to actually go on IO, and I've already labeled my inserts and basically activate AFX 5 and 6, which will go straight to this and back to Pro Tools. So now if I play, I see the meter moving, and it's always worth to go check with the very comprehensive metering facilities that the interface gives. I can go here, even if troubleshooting is needed, I can go here and check that the AFX buses are actually fed by something, in this case 5 and 6. And to triple check that everything is all right, I can go to AFX out and then see that the signal is coming out. I'm running it through the tape. You can bypass it here. You can already hear the difference. It's making it crunchier and darker. And I obviously always like to push things hard. I quite like what it's doing. You can obviously change your, inches per second, which will make it darker or brighter. There's a lot of very nice settings to work with. I think this is the one I like the most, so I'm gonna leave it like this. So then similarly with the bass, for example, if I want to beef up the bass a little bit, send this to 7 and 8, and then we go to 7 and 8, we make it a pair. And generally on bass I would have something fast at the beginning of the chain, just for the attack. Something like this maybe. Just loop this section over here. So there we go, something a little, just kissing the needle. And then maybe a nice EQ over here. I really like this guy. Sometimes it's very nice to combine these as well. Maybe a little bit of, let's see. It's very musical. Another interesting feature is the possibility to run things through guitar amp simulations. For example, I can take this bass DI, which sounds like this, and run it through number 9, which I'm going to keep mono. And down here, there's guitar amps and cabinets. So, for example, I could have nice plexi on the bass for whatever reason. Distorting a lot. In a nice way, we need a little bit more level here. There's a few other things. And I can always add a compressor after, or an EQ if I feel I need a little bit more control before going back to Pro Tools. So in this case I could put something like this. Let's see. We obviously have, I showed a few compressors and a few EQs, which are very nice. There's a lot of different types, much more than I need probably, but there's a lot. And there's obviously cabinets as well, so you can always stack a guitar head with a cabinet like this, and you have control over the microphone positioning, the mixing between them, different features. It's very, very comprehensive. Phase, obviously, which is always important. Change the cabinet here. It's very great. One thing that is worth mentioning is that I'm using this interface and this session as a mix session, but in a recording scenario, the preamp signal after the converter, after the analog to digital converter, can be routed straight to the AFXs, and then from the AFXs to Pro Tools or to whatever DAW you're using. In the absence of analog equipment, I can take my preamp number 1, it's already 1 to 4 routed to the AFXs, and then from the AFXs, they are already routed to Pro Tools. So in this instance, let's say I wanted to have my vocal chain, and my vocal chain will be something like this, BAE, which is really nice. I own a bunch of those, they're really cool. And into a like a slow compressor maybe, or actually it would probably be something like this. If I feel the necessity, it will be something like this. And then at the end, just in case I need some color or some additional EQ, I will have something like this. And this could be my vocal chain. It's already there. The signal is going through it and it's being recorded, processed. Obviously, it doesn't work for every application, but in the absence of some like gear like this or a specific vocal chain, this could be very useful. At the same time, if you didn't want to print it, you only wanted to listen to it, then you could record it clean and route the preamp straight to Pro Tools by just dragging it like this. Use one of the AFXs, like one of any other channel, as a monitoring facility. So this is Strangers by Bob and the Apple, mixed through the Orion Studio Synergy Core plugins and effects by Antelope.